Good afternoon. This is Patrick D. McCoy, and welcome to this special installment of Across the Arts, an edition of the Conversation Series. We are so honored for you to join us for this very important conversation as we explore the effects of COVID-19 on the arts community. I'm so honored to have assembled this panel of esteemed colleagues and, moreover, dear friends. This is a very important conversation where you're having an opportunity to dialogue with arts administrators, educators, conductors, musicians, and different figures in the arts communities. You may have seen on Facebook and social media that there's been a array of discussions on COVID-19 and the implications on the arts community. You've heard these discussions from the standpoint of the medical profession and the devastating effects of COVID-19. And today I want to turn the attention to the aspect of the arts administrator, the educator, and the church musician, and how this all comes into play. We have a very varied panel, and today I just want to thank you all again for being with us for this very important discussion. I want to jump right in. Jenny Bidfield, good afternoon.
Hello, my friend Patrick. Thank you for
Thank
having
you so
us.
much. Thank you so much. Jenny Bidfield is the president and CEO of Washington Performing Arts. And Jenny, Washington Performing Arts, I would say, is definitely one of our country's leading arts presenters. And especially here in Washington, everybody knows Washington Performing Arts. And, just I would say a few minutes ago, I'm not a few minutes ago, Jesus, I'm already ready to rush you off. A few months ago, Washington Performing Arts was embarking on, probably moving towards the end of the season. And then out of the blue, COVID-19 happened. You all were in the midst of planning your gala, and you all had to make some decisions based on COVID-19 and the effects on the gala. Talk about how you all had to move towards a virtual gala. How was that?
Well, I'll tell you, this was one of the most remarkable examples of teamwork and will and mission-driven thinking that I've seen at our organization, and I'm really proud of that. Washington Performing Arts doesn't have a venue of its own. We use venues all over the city. And so we have to come in and do things very quickly and very nimbly within any space we work in, whether it's an inside venue or outdoor space. So as the restrictions on mass gatherings were beginning to lower, from 1,000 to 250 to 50, our gala was scheduled for Saturday, March 14th, which is when the window had narrowed to, I think, gatherings of 100 people, somewhere in there. We had a 600-person event planned for the National Building Museum honoring Sheila Johnson, the founder of BET. We had Janae Bridges as one of our soloists. Our Children of the Gospel were set to perform. We had the String Queens. It was going to be an unbelievably exciting gala, 600 people in attendance, and it raises about 20% of our contributed revenue. So there was a lot at stake. People started backing out, saying that they were concerned about attending, people of all ages. Many were compelled by their companies to withdraw because their companies had imposed travel restrictions out of concern for the spread of the virus. So on Wednesday afternoon, before the Saturday gala, we were faced with, do we, send it off, with best wishes, but essentially kill the event, or figure out a way to do it. And honestly, having so much talent and so many people committed, we decided that it was better to rely upon the goodwill of people who supported our mission and ask them to come with us as we attempted a new format. Sheila Johnson is also one of the most remarkable entrepreneurs and has this legendary portfolio of resorts and hotels, and Salamander in Middleburg is among them. So we reached out to her team and said, would you consider hosting sort of a studio creation, live TV at your resort, and let us do the gala there, to have the performances, to transition to live auction, paddle raise to support our education programs, silent auction, which was already online. All the scripts had been created, all the films, everything. And her team made it happen, offered us the location. But in addition, our team basically amplified everything that we were doing and pivoted to doing all of that online. So all of the unique content, all of the in the moment bidding with proxy bidders and the old-fashioned, like Jerry Lewis, telethon. We had those tables set up, socially distanced, brought in a fantastic team to film it, and Michelle Miller, who anchors CBS Saturday Morning, was the MC, as she'd long planned to be. So everyone pulled together because we were not going to let this thing go. There was too much at stake. There were too many people involved, and there was too much goodwill to let it pass. And I'm thrilled to say that people did show up. They stepped up. They worked literally around the clock. People were generous. And what we heard from our supporters is, this is the Washington Performing Arts we love seeing. It's this kind of can-do, make it happen organization, not limited by space or the walls, but only by the capabilities that we choose to run with. So the team made it happen, and it actually helped close out, as we were just saying, there were some incredibly memorable events that we did when we were last most active. The gala was one that reminded us of what we are capable of doing when all the conditions are right and the will and the mindset is right.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Now, this, as you all can tell, this conversation definitely has a theme of transition. So I want to go to Anthony Blake Clark, who is the artistic director of Baltimore Choral Arts. So Maestro Clark, talk about how you had to make this transition with your singers and to keep them engaged once you had to make this change because of COVID-19. How did you keep the singers energized and engaged?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's an honor to speak with such distinguished colleagues and friends. So yeah, it hit pretty hard and pretty swiftly, pretty unexpectedly, as we all know. And so the first thing that we immediately thought of was the necessity of keeping our audience and our singers engaged. So after doing a similar sort of pivot as WPA had to do with our online gala, or with our gala, we transitioned to an online format. After we sort of figured all that out, we've been doing some things to keep everyone engaged. So the first thing that we started was a video blog called Music with the Maestro. And it's on our Facebook page every day every Thursday at 5:45. And basically what my idea was, why don't I sort of call upon my colleagues and contacts and mentors and try and set up something that's truly engaging and interesting, a sort of series of interviews that you never would have sort of had the opportunity to organize otherwise. So, I was calling people like Marin Alsop and my dear friend Mirga at the CBSO, and Simon Carrington, Simon Halsey, Teddy Abrams, and trying to sort of, and Tom Koopman, trying to figure out how we could have these conversations with well-known maestri in their field about music that they just want to talk about with us. So of course it has a choral slant, but I thought, why not do something a little bit outside the box and a little bit special. So that was the first thing. Secondly, we've been doing a bunch of virtual choir projects, the big of which the entire choir is involved in, and that's going to be shared later this week. That's a huge project for the singers to stay engaged. And of course, it's nothing like being in a rehearsal room or a concert hall with your colleagues, with your friends, breathing together, making music together. It just, it doesn't hold a candle, right? But they see me conducting, they know that they are sort of working towards a shared goal, which is one of the reasons to sing in choirs anyway. So we've been doing some virtual choir performances. We've set up the biggest thing that I'm excited about, that's really sort of for the sole benefit of the singers. We've started to set up a series called Masterworks Moments, and the title comes from, there are many choral orchestral masterworks and choral only masterworks and orchestral only masterworks, but there are lots of moments in all kinds of choral music, whether they be the big, huge sort of choral orchestral things, or if it's a Bruckner motet or the Lili Blanche Day Psalm 24 that's just 6 minutes long. There are many, many moments in choral music that are sort of on the masterworks level. And so the idea is that we're going to, all through the summer, every third Monday evening, we're going to survey these masterworks together, kind of like a mock rehearsal. Everyone's going to be on mute except me and Leo, my associate conductor, who's going to be on the piano. And we're just going to sort of go through these pieces together as if we were rehearsing them. So, we send out a packet of music and pronunciation guides and all those types of things beforehand. And then we just have everyone on mute, and we rehearse through these things as if we were together, or we're talking about the hard parts, we're talking about the interesting parts, we're talking about things to watch out for. And so, we're seeing things like on Monday, we're going to go through Mahler 2. It was the first thing that I sang with Simon Rattle for his 60th birthday concerts in London. And even before then, I was obsessed with Mahler 2. It's the reason why I wanted to conduct choral orchestral works and be a symphony chorus director. So we're going to start with Mahler 2. We have 3 M's on Monday: Mahler, Monteverdi, and Mahler, Monteverdi, and Mendelssohn. And then the month after, I think we're going to do surveys of little choral gems. Boulanger, Ysaye Barnwell, Susan Labar, Bruckner. Just tiny little things that sort of have a lot of variance to them. So that's kind of the thing that I'm most excited about over the summer, is sort of doing these masterworks moments. And by the way, they're open to all singers, not just Baltimore Choral Arts. We thought that would be a good way to sort of branch out. And actually, the other day, I got a comment on Facebook saying, "This is so exciting! I'm going to join you from the Bahamas." So things like that are the hidden blessings of this time, being able to connect in different ways. And of course, the last thing that we're doing is I'm starting a series of small, tiny interviews with our singers, just one-on-one individually, called Why We Sing. The idea stemmed from a book that I love that we talked about at a board meeting once. And basically it became my mantra all last year, which was, we know what we do, we know how we do it, but at the nucleus of everything, can everyone in our organization speak to why we do this, why we sing, why we present concerts, why we perform? And so that was a question that I posed to the singers, and we wrote them down on index cards in the first rehearsal of the year. Why do you sing? Why is it that you do what you do? You give up hundreds of volunteer hours every year, and for what? So we're doing these interviews entitled Why I Sing, and they're just these little 2.5-minute sort of little thoughts from individual singers, almost like a singer spotlight kind of thing. And so that's that. I hope that in combination, all of those things will keep our community engaged and interacting with one another, and me interacting with them while we can't be in the same room with each other. That's what we're trying for.
Thank you so much. I want to move in a different direction now and talk about the support. Even though this whole pandemic and social distancing and COVID-19 is definitely a strange time, it is definitely also put on display the element of support. So I want to move to Terry Allen, who is the executive director of the Coalition for African Americans in the Performing Arts, whose mission is to
bringing color to the classics.
Thank you. And so, Terry, could you share? First of all, I want to talk and give a little personal privilege. I've known Terry for a long time, and we've been on this mission together. But her theme with Kappa is definitely to bring color to the classics and bring that element of diversity. But the coalition has also been a support for artists. Terry, talk about some of the ways that you all have supported artists during this time.
Well, it was very important, and thank you, Patrick, for having this forum for everyone. We really appreciate you and the work that you're doing. What Kappa tries to do, we make an effort to support Black classical musicians, opera singers, youth, senior citizens, and others in the performing arts by bringing color to the classics. And it was important when the pandemic hit, and we were scheduled for probably about 20 or so programs between the time that everything started to the end of our season, which will end in June. We decided collectively as a board and also as committee members, we decided to postpone some, to cancel some, and then to transition some. So we took a good hard look at being able to transition which programs would we identify and which programs would we want to consider transitioning to a virtual platform. And we did that in order to, as you mentioned, to support our community, to stay engaged with our community, and to keep Black classical musicians in the limelight, to help them to continue honing their skills, to present youth, to present emerging and aspiring and professional musicians. So we did that in a variety of different ways. One thing that we did was our performance series, which we were able to transition that and build a new program called Versitals. So it's short for virtual recitals. That is a weekly platform where we have taken a combination of past performances, collectively edited it down into a 20-minute performance showcase where Black musicians are featured, where they have an opportunity to not only see themselves, but share it with their friends and their colleagues and neighbors, so that we see that the arts are remaining alive within the Black community. And it's so important in these times, especially. But we did that through the Versital series. A second way was we were able to partner with the Prince George's County Public Schools in bringing a program for the youth. It's specifically designed as an arts integration program. And what we've done is we call it, and this is a virtual program, Operations. So it's, and then Asians. And what that does is that it allows our teachers to use our Kappa platform in helping those students in bringing Kappa and opera and classical music to the classroom in a virtual setting. So we're very happy to have been able to do that. In addition, we had our music scholarship. We just had our music scholarship program last 2 weeks ago, where we presented, and it's so important because this is a program that's been in existence for about 7 years now. And we wanted to continue highlighting our high school aspiring students, graduating seniors, who are getting ready to go off to college to study classical music or music education or whatever their desired career choice is. But we wanted to be able to continue that. So like all of my colleagues here on the panel, we decided to go ahead and have a virtual student showcase where the students and their parents, we had our adjudicators, and they were able to actually perform on the screen, so that we made allowed the students to perform. But we made a decision, and that will be done on this Saturday at an award ceremony. So we'll have a virtual award ceremony. That's open, so anyone can come. We have two of our past scholarship recipients that will be presenting at that time as well. In addition, and I was just chatting with Tony, our masterclass series, which is a partnership that we have throughout the year, that we partner with the historically Black colleges and universities. We had to kind of put that on hold, and that was based solely on the decision of the colleges taking their platforms virtual. So we had to table most of those classes. In fact, Patrick, we know that we were going to come to Virginia State University, and that had to be postponed. But we're excited to share that that program is going to be picked up for the fall. So our coordinator out of Charlotte, North Carolina, Angela Simpson, has already begun the process of contacting those colleges. And because it's a virtual platform, it will be able to be nationwide and hopefully international, because other students will be able to participate in that. And that's really something that we're excited about, because we're not confined to the limitations of the DMV. And while we are based nationally and internationally, this way with our new virtual platform, the sky is the limit. So we're excited about that, to be able to support that. But one thing that our co-founder and chairman of the board, Pamela Simonson, very, very early on, and she herself is an opera singer, classically trained opera singer, she decided very early on that we had to do something to support our artists, our production team, our staff. So we came up under her guidance with a stimulus package to actually send out. Although they were small, we were able to send out checks to the majority of our past performers, our production team, just a show of support and encouragement to help them to understand and know that we have their goodwill at heart. So we're just thankful that we're able to support in any way that we can with particularly Black, with particularly musicians of color and our youth and our senior citizens. But we're so excited, and I love looking at everybody's Facebook pages and all of their different areas. And I must say, on a personal note, Jenny Benfield, you have been truly an inspiration to our organization, and I really appreciate it. Patrick, you as well. But we just ask for your prayers and continued support to help bring color to the classics.
Thank you so much. So I want to just go back to you, Terry, just very quickly. I think it's very admirable the fact that that the organization still found a way to compensate the artists in this time. You hear about a lot of these organizations where the people, because of force majeure, and they really exercise that to its potential to say, hey, we didn't have anything to do with COVID-19, whatever, we don't pay you. So I think that's very, very admirable. Jenny, I saw your hand raised. Did you have something that you wanted maybe to add to Terry?
Oh, well, I was clapping as well as raising my hand. But I think this is really important for our field to say over and over and over again, because there's been this discussion about, oh, there's so much free content online. I can tune in and I can get this artist and that artist. And we have to be absolutely vigilant to the point of being obnoxious about this is a transitional period to get artists back to work, that people are doing this for free, that they're doing it out of their homes, and they're doing it because they are used to producing things and connecting with our other artists and audiences. The new normal is not that we get all this content for free as we pay monthly for Netflix and Amazon Prime and all these other things. It's to build a business model that makes sure that artists get paid at whatever level we're able to pay them. We all had these issues, many of us, with force majeure, venues not available, but we also paid all of the independent artists an honorarium for the canceled performances, and we always pay our Mars Arts DC artists and our teaching artists, and finding more things for them to do. So it's really up to us to find those points of connection where we can continue to have artists paid, not just saying, oh, but it's good for it's good exposure. Like, enough. And I feel really fired up about that we have to be able to lead within our field.
Yes.
And paying people to do it. And I'm so, CAPA has the most sterling principles, ethics, and mission around that. And you've been leaders with great art and building this business model that has expanded all over. So I'm excited about the international piece. And really just want to support those strong voices, making sure that people are compensated and honored for the tremendous generosity that our field is showing, and the tremendous accessibility that maintains connection, but also we want to be careful doesn't lead to more vulnerability.
Thank
I'll get off
you.
my soapbox.
Thank you. Now, our young people have definitely been affected, whether you're talking about public school, whether you're talking about the collegiate level, et cetera, the list goes on. I want to move on to Donnie Johns, who is the founder and director of the DMV Percussion Academy. Don, talk to us about some of the ways that you're maintaining engagement with your young people through your academy.
Yeah, so it's definitely been an adjustment. Let me first say thank you, Patrick, for having me here. It's an honor to be on this panel. We had already been planning out several different virtual initiatives. We'd already been kind of planning out virtual content just by bringing in different drum and percussion artists from around the region to provide online master classes for students. That was kind of our way to give students that kind of enrichment and instruction during the school year in preparation for our in-person percussion workshop that happens in the summertime. But of course, with COVID going down and kind of putting a damper on a lot of our initiatives, we went ahead and made the entire academy virtual. So we're bringing in artists. I have Javon Gilliam, typically player of the National Symphony. I've got Brian Prechtel, who's a percussionist with the Baltimore Symphony. I've got a drum set player, McClenty Hunter, who's won Grammys, Juilliard graduate and Howard University graduate, and also a Jeff Stern, a marimba professor at Peabody Conservatory, among several others that are coming together and providing online content the week of June 22nd through the 26th for students in grades 6 through 12. So as far as our clinics and master classes, I'm hoping that nothing will really be lost with the virtual platform. Although the one challenge is the performing. With us being percussionists, instruments is definitely a challenge. Most students don't have timpani and marimbas and such, chimes in the basement, that sort of thing. So just being able to kind of plan that out. Other schools and organizations have been really jumping in to help support as far as like lending instruments, borrowing, sharing. We're giving instruments out to some of the students that have already signed up for camp and giving them music to prepare ahead of time. So when the camp comes, we can rehearse it and hopefully put together a virtual performance. So we've had challenges, to be certain, but with collaboration and creativity, I think we're going to be very successful.
Thank you so much. And a few of us on here have had the experience of trying to teach, virtual lessons, and you had to delay with Zoom. So it is definitely a challenge. Thank you so much, Don. And I would be remiss if I didn't give Don his props. If you ever go to some of the major performances at the Kennedy Center, just in town with orchestra, you will see him working at percussion. So Don, it's always good to see you represented in the orchestras in our city.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to continue this theme with our young people and the community and engagement. And I want to welcome my dear friend, Dr. Edrin Coleman, to the panel, who is a core music educator, has taught on, of course, the public school level and, of course, higher education, and is my fellow Alpha brother and also my fellow alum of Shenandoah Conservatory. Edrin, thank you so much for being a part of the panel.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for having me.
Talk to me now, public school, for those who have definitely taught in the public school medium, we all know that it is definitely a challenge to keep young people engaged. Can you just maybe talk about your program in particular and how this has shifted during this time of COVID-19?
Sure. Well, I am teaching at Oakland Mills High School in Howard County, Maryland. I have 3 choirs. I have a concert choir, an intermediate choir, which is my vocal ensemble, and a top audition choir. My students love music. They work very hard. We were really, the funny thing is the day that the school shut down, we were preparing for our biggest choral assessment the very next, it was Friday, and we were preparing for Monday. My students were on fire. They were ready to work. They were rehearsed. They were prepared. And then nothing. I mean, it just went from the height of being ready to perform to go home and let's transition to being online.
My goodness.
The shock of it all for my students and myself was really hard because we were in performance mode. I mean, we were a day away from our big assessment and they were ready. They were in the right frame of mind. They were prepared. And just to see the looks on their faces when that happened. Actually, we were in a rehearsal after school, and I just happened to be listening to the news because I knew Governor Hogan was going to make an announcement. And I had a feeling of what it could be, but I wasn't sure. And there were some choir students in the room who heard the news. And when we heard Governor Hogan say what he said, my classroom went quiet. Every student, time stood still. We were like, did he just say what we think he just said? And from that moment on, online learning, it hasn't been difficult. It's just been uphill.
Could you maybe speak to the anxiety that maybe your colleagues have shared? Because I know I've seen different discussions of different choral colleagues and just the frustration, just the whole idea that you can't make music during this time. Could you maybe speak to that?
Sure. It is definitely, I've never felt this type of frustration before as an artist, because every day of my life as a music educator is me making something with my students. And I'm that type of collaborative teacher. And so now I don't have that everyday interaction with my students to be able to have those creative moments that we have every day. So that has just created anxiety among all of us. Everyone just feels the emptiness of not being able to create with each other. And just outside of teaching, the need to get together with technology, the need to start integrating things. I mean, the mad dash that so many of us made to do the best we could to find the resources to start preparing our students, because we knew that we had to do that. I don't know of a teacher who just sat home and said, well, I'm just going to sit down and just wait till they tell us what to do. We were all home planning, saying, okay, we know it's coming, so let us start preparing. So a million Facebook groups opened up with online teachers. We were sharing information from teachers all across the world. And it helped us to somewhat quell the anxiety to know that there were other people who were doing the same things we were. An online network of teachers has been a very good help for teachers during all of this, because we've been able to provide resources for each other. And like I said, kind of quell some of that anxiety of just the not knowing what's going on and trying to figure out the best way to approach our teaching through an online platform. I know for me personally, as a teacher who connects with the students in real time, that I've done a lot of personal reflecting as an educator and realized how heavily I lean on my ability to connect with my students in real time, and how I don't see the student who looks down when they don't understand, or the student who looks away, just the small things that we take for granted in the classroom that we now realize those small things impacted my in such a large way, and I don't have those small things now to guide my teaching. So now all of my teaching has to be structured in a new way.
Thank you so much. I want to shift the conversation in another direction and talk about another component of all of this. I want to talk about the aspect of international travel. And that's where I bring in this powerhouse on this panel, Nita Helms. Nita Helms is the founder and president of Classical Movements. And if any of your choirs or your orchestras, festivals, if it entails travel and international engagement, overseas and the like, she is your person that has really spent a lot of her career organizing these ventures, including Anthony Blake Clark, as he mentioned, Baltimore Choral Arts, where they did their London tour. So Nita, welcome to the panel, and thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Patrick.
Could you maybe talk to us about the whole impact of COVID-19 as far as your international ventures with all of your performance organizations? Talk about that. What was that like? COVID-19 hit, you have all these international tours. What do you do next?
Yes, I mean, I feel like we're the crosshairs of both travel as well as classical music. And the worst industry hit by COVID-19 is, of course, the travel industry. And the second, like really right up there, is of course live performances, and we do both. So we take our orchestras and choirs on tour, and it's really been it's been quite a shock to the system, because we're in our 28th year and having as good a year as any. And we did operate a few tours with the LA Phil and Minnesota Orchestra and a choir from South Africa, and then getting ready for Anthony Blake Clark's choir from George Washington University, about to leave for Europe and early March, and a couple of other groups going to Europe, Italy, two to Italy and March, and then the National Symphony Orchestra to Japan, first to China and then Japan, and first China canceled, and then inevitably 3 days before Japan too. So I think it's been a shock to the system, of course, for everyone. And we've been living this since January, because when we started in China with tours to China and then that ship in Japan and then, Korea, we were already absolutely up to our necks with COVID-19 starting from about the 21st of January. And all of our wildest dreams, we thought if there's something that was happening far away was going to affect us because we'd be in danger of going far away. The reality, I'm sorry to say, as we all know, is that we are the problem. And even as countries are opening up, as we speak, we are not welcome in practically any part of the world. That is the biggest shock for me personally, that we, the United States of America, have handled this in this terrible way. We have such horrible and sad numbers. So when you say calamity, to me, the calamity, obviously it hits home for us, but I mean, the calamity in the United States with the staggering numbers of 100,000 and growing is the worst. And then of course our business, yes, you know, following those 4 tours I mentioned, I mean, in March, we have now canceled 32 tours around the world in 6 continents. And it's at least 1 to 2 years of work in every one of the cases. And added up altogether, there's about 200 concerts we're talking about canceling all over the world. So it's a great misfortune for the people that were going on tour, as well as obviously for us. And I think it started off with being very worried about canceling, and say the National Symphony Orchestra not wanting to cancel easily because they realized how much money was at stake and how much had been invested on it, to becoming the reality that in fact now, you know, the countries totally understand why we've canceled, but even if we hadn't, they didn't want us. I mean, taking the Minnesota Orchestra to Vietnam, I mean, it was looking like it was a problem in Asia, but now Vietnam's open and they have their first orchestra concert announced just 2 weeks before we were going to arrive there. So, I mean, this is a tragedy for me. We are the ones who can't go. And so I think that I see the travel business hurt terribly. And the other part of this, which is so basic to me and all of us here, is that we are in the business of taking orchestras and choirs on tour, and both are suffering so much. Choirs, and there's these stories that have spread like wildfire through every corner of the world about how choral music is so bad for you, and you will almost certainly get sick if you sing in a choir. Now, while that might be a reality at the moment, I personally have felt very upset, and I think Anthony Blake shares that with me, that it's been a very negative, I mean, the story has been negative. I'm not a negative person. I believe we have to say, we have a challenge, and we have to make the message that we are temporarily shut down, but we are coming back, we're roaring back. No one can stop the music. And of course, it is a reality. I mean, I know it might sound like, you know, me speaking out of thin air, but, you know, I understand the winds and the brass are also a complicated situation for orchestras. But I'd just like us to find a way out. I'd like us to be positive. I think the music must go on, and eventually travel will come back. In fact, it's coming back. And so to pivot to you know, how has it been in the world? The world's slowly opening up. I mean, Italy, Austria, Germany have already started announcing concerts. The audiences are also a problem for everyone. It's not just the musicians being not able to perform easily and safely. The other reality is, how do you get the audiences? And I'm sure that Jenny will be the one who will tell you that that's her biggest challenge. How do you get 1,000 people into a concert hall of 2,000 safely? And so, you know, these are the realities. And certainly for us, it's how do you get on an aircraft, and who's willing to get on an aircraft? How, you know, you ensure, or how do you know whether you have quarantine again? And I mean, who's going to get stuck in quarantine? I mean, if I talk about the challenges, there's endless amounts of them. But I have to say that we as a company have pivoted already to other things. We, of course, had to cancel these 32 tours, but we've got many tours that we're planning for 21. And I'm not 100% sure they'll happen, but we're working. And then 22, there's a lot. So, I mean, we're looking forward, we're doing what we do. And the other thing that we've done in terms of new things is our company started with cultural tours for individuals. And anybody wanted to go to Russia or to Cuba or to Vietnam or South Africa or Turkey, those kinds of destinations, we were doing tours there. So we've started those again. We just launched it yesterday. And
Congratulations.
and cultural lovers. And we've also done a huge focus in the United States of America. And we are hoping that our choirs and orchestras and bands and our various friends will, if they can't easily go abroad, will perhaps start thinking about America the Beautiful, because America is gorgeous, beautiful. And anyone who's sad about not being able to go, say, to some far off place, I say to you, what about Saipan and Alaska and Hawaii and New Orleans? What's not to love? And so we're positive. We're here. We know that this business is going to come back, but we just want to do it safely. We want it to be, the joy that everybody has and is freely sharing now. I agree with what Jenny said. I mean, we've got to bring back money for our artists, first of all, our organizations. I think this is a multi-pronged challenge for everyone.
Thank you so much. I want to turn my attention to Anne-Marie Hutley-Simmons, who is the national president of the National Association of Negro Musicians. How are you? Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And before I launch into my questions for you, I want to make an appeal to the Facebook audience. Please submit your questions, and we would like to begin very shortly answering some of those questions. Please direct them to a particular panelist, or you may make a general question. Now, Anne-Marie, again, like I said, you are the national president of the National Association of Negro Musicians. And of course, this is a very important organization founded in 1919 and really, really elevates and supports the aspirations of African-American musicians and of African descent. So talk to me about how has your leadership of the organization been affected as you have to govern all these various branches of NAM?
Thank you. Yes. And before I go to that question, I want to thank the colleagues, all of you who have spoken. You've been so encouraging. And I was getting ready to say, oh, not a woe is me, not a doom message, but it's been so encouraging to hearing from the various ones of you about what you're doing. Yes, I was elected last July and planned immediately that was the centennial of NAM. That was our centennial celebration. As you mentioned, it was founded in 1919. And the purpose for which, at that time, African-American musicians were not nurtured. They were not welcome to sing on stage. They were not being sought after. So this small cadre of people who got together decided to form this organization to make it possible for others of the same color, from the same background, to at least have a platform to sing not only their music, but music from all of across the world. And many of you may know that Marian Anderson was the first recipient of one of our scholarships, and that's one of the main things that we do. You've got Jeremy Jordan, who was a recipient of the scholarship, Joseph Joubert. There's just so many. Every year we give scholarships, and that's what we do. But clearly the impact on our organization has been great, suffered by maybe more than others. It has been an older generation, as you can imagine, starting in 1919. Now, I wasn't there back then, but we are now nurturing, sometimes I feel like it, but we are now nurturing and looking for younger people, because if this organization is to exist in the next 100 years, then we are looking at young people who are in elementary school and high school and in college. And we're building that base because we have 5 categories of membership. There's the adult, the life members, the collegiate, the juniors, and the youth. So we want all of these to become a part of our organization. And so we're mentoring now. My focus as the new president is to mentor young people, because we want to make certain that they get involved in NAM and carry it to the next level. we have one young man, Lenny Hayes, who won the piano scholarship 5 years ago. And he never forgets that NAM helped him and promoted him in his efforts. He's now got a free ride for his doctorate in Florida, but he's a marvelous musician and working very hard at his craft. So as you mentioned, our vision to preserve and to enhance and maintain the music composed by, arranged by, or performed by African Americans still continues in spite of this pandemic. Our mission is still to be the voice, the platform, a source of encouragement and advocacy for all genres of music composed or arranged by African Americans, be it blues, jazz, spirituals, classical music. People forget that African Americans were also composers of classical music. Spirituals, we've done so much. We want to make certain that we promote that. And we've had to your question, Patrick, we've had to step not necessarily out of the box. We've really had to move the box off the table, get it away from the stage, because we are so accustomed to this is the way we do it. This is what we need. And our young people need to do X, Y, and Z. We have very rarely talked about electronic music. We very rarely talk about composition. And we have young people like Christopher Flood, who is graduating from Westminster Choir College soon, who went into the J.W. Pepper choral competition and won. So, and we have Sky Carranza, an oboist who is incredible, an exceptional talent, just graduated from Crane Music School. And there are others all across the country. So what I'm saying is these are the kinds of things that our organization is hooking on to in spite of this pandemic. It's like you say, now the box is gone. So we're looking at doing things that are Zoomed, that are videotaped, that are streamed, that are telecommunicated, that are voice conferenced. We're looking at presenting those videos of things online so that our work continues and never stops. There, we have an advisory council of our 5 preceding presidents, and Dr. Patterson, Dr. Brown, Dr. Morrow. I'm missing, there's Byron Smith. I'm missing one. I'm not sure why I'm missing one, but there are 5 of them all together.
Roland Carter.
Roland Carter, Lord have mercy. Yes, Roland Carter, who's a giant in his own right.
Yeah.
So we have these 5 men who are in our advisory council, and they've given us advice all along the way, and I've utilized them. It's one thing to have been there, done that, and got the T-shirt and threw it away because you didn't really like it in the first place. It's another thing to use all of these people on whose backs we stand and say, okay, now what was it that you were thinking of? What was your plan? How did you? What was your idea? So these are the kinds of things that we're trying to continue in spite of the pandemic. So how does the convention roll out? I'm not sure if this is a part of the question that you want me to answer at this time, but we are definitely going, it looks like when I say we are definitely, we did vote, the National Board did vote to go hybrid. So comes July, we had to cancel the convention for 2020 because there was no way we were going to put anybody's life in jeopardy. Nobody would have come in the first place, but we had already signed the contract at the DoubleTree Hotel. So we had to go to them and say, all right, and my take on it was to them, I know you were getting ready to call us and tell us that we were not able to have the conference, because if we had gone to them and said, we need to pull out, they said, well, that's going to cost you 20% of your contract, which was $101,000. So it was going to cost us, in addition to the $12,000 we had already done as a down payment, another $20,000. But we approached him from that way, and we have a marvelous executive secretary, Dorothy Kennedy, who said, now we would like to rework the contract because we are thinking of coming 2021. Here's the thing about 2021. We really don't know what's happening with this coronavirus.
That's right.
And it seems like all of the research conflicts on a daily basis. It evolves. People are saying, but it's not a DNA virus. It's an RNA virus. So DNA virus responds to vaccines, but what does the RNA virus respond to? So when you got all of these voices in your head, I said to my compadres, I said, look, we're going to have to think in terms of a hybrid convention because we may not get to Philadelphia. Now, clearly, some of us will get to Philadelphia because that's where it's supposed to be. As you know, our conventions start clockwise. It's central, which is, you know, the Chicago, Michigan, that area. Then it goes east, then it goes southeast, southwest, western, then it goes back east. But there's a competition that we didn't hold in 2020. And it's good seeing you, Edrin, because Edrin Coleman happens to be the chair of the Eastern Regional Scholarship Committee. So at least one person from each of these regions should be ready and a candidate to serve and show what he can do against the standards. It's not a competition against each other, it's against the standards. And that should be held probably in Philadelphia. We're going to see how many we can convince to come, because like you said, we don't know. We just don't know how this is, and for it to be authentic, it should be in the same place. All candidates should be performing on the same piano, in the same room, for it to be really authentic. So that's my major concern. So these are the things that we're doing, but we're all about the scholarships. We're all about having the virtuals, and I love that. What did you say, Terry? Versatils. I love that.
Recitals, yes.
Yes, I think that's tremendous. So we're going to be doing a lot of that.
Thank you so much. So I want to move to Dr. Tony McNeil. Dr. McNeil has his hands in kind of both sides of this. As we already discussed, he is Director of Choral Activities and Chair of the Music Department at Clinton College. And of course, Tony is also a noted speaker, pianist, singer, you name it. Tony, talk about, as it relates to the church, talk to me about some of your concerns that you have in terms of COVID-19 and its impact in the church in terms of choral singing.
Thank you, Patrick, for providing this platform for myself and for all of my colleagues who are joining us this afternoon. This virus has really forced churches and musicians and worship leaders to really evaluate the role of music in worship and why we have music in worship. It's forced us to ask questions that we've taken for granted. And we've had to redefine our purpose and the art form and how it functions in the worship life of the church. We've had to ask some hard questions. I've been lucky to, even though I'm working in academia right now, I'm still very heavily involved with a lot of church musicians and pastors as a consultant. And I've had the joy of participating on other panels such as this as a panelist and as a participant, as just one that's just in the room listening to what is going on in the arena of church music during this pandemic. And the thing that resonates, that resonates the most with me is helping worship leaders and pastors and worship committees keep safety and health at the forefront of the conversation. I know as musicians and artists, we miss creating and we miss making our art and we miss being up in front of the choir and hearing those 4 parts or 3 parts or 2 parts or whatever it is that your choir produces coming back at us. But we're at a time now where health and safety is the order of the day. And for those of us that are passionate about what it is that we do, it causes us to have to give the art away in a sense, in lieu of safety. So I'm encouraged by the creativity and ingenuity that I'm seeing on online in the various worship services that I have the honor of visiting every Sunday, and how people have taken this opportunity as just that, an opportunity to reimagine worship in more engaging and interactive ways. There are congregations who are struggling, who have struggled, are struggling, but they're still doing it, man. They're still showing up on Sundays on Zoom or Facebook Live or Instagram, trying to do worship as best as they can. And I'm grateful to just be one of many people that are out there that are helping churches have the conversations so that they can continue to do what they need to do. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the webinar that was co-hosted by ACDA and NATS and Chorus America, and I think the Barbershop, National Barbershop Organization, that sparked a lot of other conversations.
Yes, it did.
Because if you have not seen that conversation, I would encourage you to go to YouTube or just go to Facebook in the search box and type in Nat's ACDA webinar on singing, on the future of singing, and sit through it and listen to it. It's rather lengthy. It's about 2 hours long, but it's worth it. It's an opportunity to hear where science and art intersect, and it gives us some things to think about. And out of that conversation, Patrick, you know, there was a lot of tensions and concerns that arose culturally and musically, that I think was good, and that it got all of us thinking and all of us talking. And I'm grateful for the work of folks like Maria A. Ellis out of St. Louis, Missouri, who
and Valerie Johnson.
And Dr. Valerie Johnson. And there are others who are curating space on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, that are bringing artists and educators together to actually talk about solutions and possibilities. And I'm just thrilled. I want to say to church choir directors who may be tuned in, that as your congregation may be talking about re-entry, if you're not already at the table where the conversations and the decisions are being made, please try to create space for yourself or someone from the music ministry or the worship arts ministry to be present. I'm grateful for the pastors who are reaching out to me and to other colleagues of mine who are asking, you know, what is it that we should be doing? How should we prepare? And we can't take for granted that we can do music, especially singing, the same way that we used to do prior to COVID-19. And I'm learning now that even the simple thing as just humming can be detrimental. It could be a way of passing the virus. Even humming behind a mask is not encouraged. So things like that, church choir directors and pastors and clergy, we need to be equipped with that knowledge, lest we find ourselves jeopardizing the health and safety of those who come to worship.
Thank you so much, Tony. Now, we have gone around the whole panel, and I'm sure my panelists know I had prepared a second round of questions, but they've been so patient with me and giving me of their time. What I want to do now is start to go ahead and entertain some questions from the floor. And Jenny, this one is for you. Well, actually, you have several questions, Jenny Bidfield. Go ahead on. All right. So this first one, and you all forgive me if I'm stumbling through this. It says, in this is for Jenny. It says, inevitably, there will be a group of people that will not return to attending concerts in person. Have you or Washington Performing Arts considered offering concerts as a streaming option? This could serve as a lucrative revenue stream that ordinarily wouldn't be considered but for COVID-19.
Yeah, so I'm happy to answer that, because I would encourage anyone who might wonder what we're doing for the 2020-21 period to tune in on June 15th, because we're going to unveil our plans. And so, not to give away too much, but I do think, so you think about the mission of an organization and what you're able to do. And we, as I said, don't have our own venue. So we've coined the phrase, the city is our stage. But also digital is our stage. So when you think about what you're able to achieve and the points of connection that can be made between artists and patrons, pivoting to other ways of forging those connections is really essential. And what I think excites me about this time, if find that silver lining and positiveness, is that we are not alone as an institution in figuring this out. Every single one of us around the table is figuring out a new way to forge those connections. And so, to the point of this quick pivot, for many organizations, it's been a minor miracle to update our websites. Now all of a sudden we're doing this shift to presenting digital content. And it's a reflection of the tenacity of our field and our sheer determination to make that transition and not leave people behind. So actually digital, as Terry was describing, and also, what all of you are doing, the ways that you're building meaningful connection with performers and with audience by taking advantage of the new scope. It is a bit of the Wild West. We don't know exactly how it will play out, but I don't think any of us, correct me if I'm wrong, but none of us is saying that we're going to dispense with live performance, but we want people to be safe and we want to be prudent financially. So, phasing things back as we're able to safely bring people back into a venue as our venues figure it out, but not letting that core point of connection go. And actually, we've done a very intensive and detailed survey of our patrons, and I'm happy to share out the kind of high-level feedback we got. But people are willing to pay for content online, provided it's well recorded, well filmed, that it isn't only in kind of living room, kind of rough and ready. But if we can invest in and share in knowledge of how to present the arts really well, we'll also see, I think, how, as I was saying before, how incredibly generous organizations and musicians are, and hopefully have the people who might have transacted around ticket sales support philanthropically and through these new digital platforms. But I'm determined. I think our board, staff, artists, whether it's our education programs, local arts programs, or presented programs, to solidify and connect even as deeply as we can.
Thank you so much. I have a question for Nita, and I think it kind of ties into Jenny. This question that was posed from Facebook, Nita is asking, do you think some nonprofit arts organizations will return to brick and mortar buildings or continue to operate virtually, which may be more cost effective?
Yes, it's a complex question, but the answer I know is that the fully professional orchestras who are committed to annual salaries and 52 weeks, so all of those organizations have to be performing live and need these concerts, because the income, even if it's not a majority of their income, it is a significant amount, and even their donors, etc., will only pay if they're back performing. So if you're a professional symphony orchestra or a dance ensemble, you must be performing, and that's critical to them. If there's only 500 people in an audience of 2,000, this doesn't make their numbers. There's a huge problem for them. But if you're an orchestra that's paid for services, at this moment in time, they're not yet in dire straits, because they had to cancel their performances, but they didn't have to pay because they didn't have those performances, because they pay their artists according to when they hire them. And I think their boards and their donors, etc., are still here and robust and wanting them to survive. So I think in the short run, there's a lot of organizations that are going to be fine. It's not easy, but it's, you know, there's support, and everybody wants live artists back, and people want to see that come back. So there's a tremendous amount of support. I do think, though, in the long run, I mean, this you know, we need to come back to live performances in some form or the other. If you're, you know, not just only because you love to sing or the joy of it, but also because of the professional musician you are, to keep it up to that level. And there's no replacement to that. I think that it's good to see the stock market come back. I mean, I know that that's not the biggest number one issue, but it's good for our nonprofits, because, you know, they depend on foundations to thrive, and they depend on their endowment. So I really love to see that. And I think at the end of the day, there's nothing like the human person to person contact. And I think if your question was, will they survive and will they thrive? I think people are struggling, but they are making it happen. But in the long term, we have to find a way forward. Paying artists is absolutely critical for the many people who depend on them, and the ushers, and the people, the cleaning crew, and all the other people, the stage crew, everything that goes into having performances. You know, it's the people selling snacks, and all of that is tied into this. The people who do the box office. So it's a very important industry, not just for the soul, but also for people's livelihoods. We have to find a way. I'm not yet convinced that everything is as dangerous as everybody makes it out to be. I'd love to see more.
Thank you so much. I am going to go ahead and make a transition towards the end of our time together. I just want to say thank you all so much for joining me for this very special panel. And to the Facebook audience, I hope that it was a diverse discussion here where you can take some of these suggestions to your respective settings. I want to thank Jenny Bidfield, President and CEO of Washington Performing Arts. I want to thank Anthony Blake Clark, Artistic Director of Baltimore Choral Arts. I want to thank Edrin Coleman, Dr. Edrin Coleman, choral music educator in Howard County, Maryland. What was your school again, Edrin?
Oakland Mills High School.
Oakland Mills High School. I want to thank Terry Allen, who is the Executive Director of the Coalition for African Americans in the Performing Arts. I want to thank Anne Marie Huntley Simmons, who is the National President of the National Association of Negro Musicians. I want to thank Donnie Johns, who is the founder and director of the DMV Percussion Academy. I want to thank Dr. Tony McNeil, T-Mac, who is the Director of Choral Activities at Clinton College. And I want to just thank Mr. Joshua Reynolds for orchestrating this whole afternoon. And of course, I want to thank Nita Helms, who is the president and founder of Classical Movements. And I have been your moderator, Patrick D. McCoy. It has been an honor to spend this afternoon with you all. And I hope that to everyone on Facebook, that I know we couldn't cover everything, but I hope that you again got a diverse representation of what's going on in the arts world and the implications of COVID-19 on the arts community. So again, this has been Across the Arts with Patrick D. McCoy, and I want to thank you all so much for being with us today.